It's undeniable that a lot of people love the Vietnam Tiger Stripe, the original Tiger Stripe products, Tiger Stripe right here, but its origins are actually from a good bit back. You know, you had the French lizard, and this is the Hellenic Greek lizard. So this is a pattern that Greece was using for years, and as you can see, if I pull up this pattern, you see that it's got some subdued browns, tan, and then green. And if you actually look at the pattern where it merges, in some of these areas it looks like the colors are combined, like it's hiding behind one, and you just get the silhouette behind it, and up here too. So it's a pretty interesting pattern. Tiger Stripe has been around, at least the concept of brush strokes and Tiger Stripe has been around. It's been pretty popular. A lot of people still find it to be effective in a lot of environments. Now the question is, for a lot of people, would this actually be something that would be useful in an Alaskan environment? And the old John Wayne Dent's pattern of the Tiger Stripe, I think it's one of the sexiest patterns out there, but is it actually practical out here? It has a lot of blacks, and to me that would actually be something where you would you'd basically be in like a jungle, pretty dense jungle, where there is going to be a lot of blacks. There's a lot of areas that are never going to be seeing the sun, so that's what we see. If you look like behind me, if you're looking in the brush, you're going to see a lot of darkness, a lot of areas that are dark. Now again, camouflage uniforms in general are better used if you're already behind some concealment, and you're really supposed to somewhat blend in or do the best you can. We're not like the Predator where we can, you know, bend light and just be invisible, but you can get the colors pretty close. And I feel like the Hellenic brushstroke or what have you is actually one of the better ones. It already has a pretty close color scheme. It's a bit darker than these leaves here and most of the leaves out here, the roses that are growing and stuff. In this Tiger Stripe, the green is actually pretty close, so at distance you're not really going to be picking up too much of a difference. You've got some darker leaves and stuff like that. You got very little brown. Now if you're not really kneeling that much, you know, this is going to stick out a little bit more, but if you're behind some of this thicker brush, like you'll see back here, if you're behind a lot of this thicker brush, the black would typically get mostly covered up by the green, and that's where this wouldn't really be so much of a disadvantage. And when you have so much transition between tree, bush, tree, stump, whatever, it's not really going to be too detrimental. A lot of people don't like that there's black in a lot of patterns. They think it gives it away. But with this, you don't really have black. The darkest you get is the brown or the mixture of the green and browns where they merge together. So I think generally this would probably blend in a little better with lighter concealment. But here's the thing. This is not really to make you invisible. This is to kind of give you that time to spot the enemy before they spot you, and you to be able to take action first. So I think this would actually lend itself a little better in this area. But if you're moving, the human eye can pick up movement very easily. But you know, if you're standing still, then you probably won't notice things if you're just scanning around, because we have 360 degrees. Unless you're on a patrol, then you're going to have like between a 45 and a 90 degree angle that you're going to have to watch in your sector. It's still going to be a lot because you're going to be moving, trying to watch your footing and stuff like that. So these kind of will blend in, one better than the other, of course, but as long as there's not movement, you're probably going to be mostly good to go. So anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place this in certain areas around the woods here, and this is going to be more the woodland comparison for these patterns, but I'll let you guys decide which one blends in better. But one caveat I want you to keep in mind is cameras will pick up things and focus on them different than the human eye will. Like when you're tired or you're wide awake, you're highly caffeinated, you might not process things the same as just a camera pulling things up. You might not focus, you might see the colors blended a little more, so just keep that in mind. So anyways, let's go ahead and get to it. So I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to try to pick up the patterns, see if you can spot them. Obviously they're motionless because I just propped them up, but I feel just from my naked eye, one's pointing itself out better than the other, but I'm trying to use the cover that I feel was a little more advantageous to one over the other. So, see if you can spot it. First one we're going to go to is the tiger stripe. Now, a lot of people say you're not going to see that much black in the wood lines. Well, I guess you're not, but it didn't really seem to affect this one. It blended in with the fallen branches and the black on there because of all the decay. There is some black at distance. It looks like darkness because the sun's not hitting it directly, reflecting the colors that it would actually have. So yes, it does cause darkness. So it does end up looking like a cluster of branches. So that's the tiger stripe. So it blended in very well in that background. And then, of course, over here we have the Hellenic lizard pattern, and basically a variation of the brush stroke. This one actually stood out a lot more. I was actually kind of surprised at that. I thought it would blend in a little better, but it just kind of looks a little off. The tans kind of give it away. From my analysis, the tan is what gave it away. The tan is a little too light, and so it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb a bit. So it just looks unnatural in this environment, but the camera wasn't really picking that up, at least from my perspective looking on the screen. It's not really picking it up all that well. So again, the human eye is going to pick up things a little bit differently than a camera will. So you got to keep that in mind. The tiger stripe, the greens are very close. The browns are very close to what you have here. If you look in the background, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but the browns from this perspective look very close to the branches that are on the ground, and it's just little strips of it. So anyways, that's one little scenario, and then we'll go ahead and move on to another. Okay, again, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to see if you can spot the camouflage pattern. This is going to be the Tiger Stripe Products Tiger Stripe. See if you can spot it out in this area. As you can see, there's a lot of dark, there's some browns, good amount of green, and it could be concealed in this area, but it's motionless, so your human eye is not going to really detect those complex patterns because it's really not straight lines. It's actually broken up pretty well. So, give you a few seconds. Okay, so if you haven't found it by now, you can go and stand up now. So, there it was. Lean back down. See, it blends in pretty well. The darkness is covered a lot by leaves, but it blends in pretty well with the depth that you're seeing on the underside of the log. It is registering as black. So, it does blend in pretty well. Even if you're zooming in here, if it was completely motionless, it blends in pretty well. It just looks like a bunch of vines that you're looking through or little small branches, kind of like what's all around it. So if you pick your area well, the colors do actually fit in pretty good with the spring/summertime of Alaska. So not that bad, but you do want to make sure that you're around some wooded area similar to this where you have a fallen log. So that's it for the tiger stripe pattern. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so the next one up is the Greek lizard, and this is a Hellenic blend. And as I said before, this one kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, so you're probably going to want to go with an area that's a little brighter. See if you can spot it out. We got an open canopy here, so I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, so that's where it is, and as you can see there, you can stand up. You can stand up now. And it doesn't blend in all too well, but if you actually get it in an area where there's a little bit of darkness in the smaller area, then it's going to blend in fine from a distance, but you got to be in the kneeling, you got to be motionless, and you got to pick the right spot, so it's not the perfect one. That beige really does give it away. But the camera doesn't pick that up, but my human eye is picking it up really well. That's another thing, as I was saying, you got to consider the differences in these patterns. Okay, so as you saw, the good old Vietnam tiger stripe worked out pretty well. I'm not sure how Asian tiger stripe would work, you know, the proper Asian tiger stripe, but you know, I guess that's up for evaluation here in the future at some point. But the Hellenic, no, not really too crazy about that. It did not do as well as I thought it would. I did not think the beiges were going to be as dramatic. Now, if you get some like dead foliage, like we've actually got some, you know, dead grass here, but I mean this beige would be closer to the dead foliage on here. It's not really all that great, and it doesn't really blend in as well as some other areas would. Like maybe the birch trees would help with that if there was one that was fallen over and the bark was exposed or something, but you know, this beige really does give it away in the wood line. If they would have cut that out, maybe a little bit of black here and there, but fill it in with some browns, lighten up the greens a little bit, it would probably work out. Now at distance, I'm pretty sure that at distance you're really not going to notice that many minute details, especially through the woodland. Distance means that you're going to have more concealment, more things are going to get in your way. It's not like you're really going to find too many straight channels in a woodland environment, right? Unless you're completely devoid of this beautiful underbrush. So it's not as thick as some areas I've been, but it still does work out. You just got to find the right camouflage pattern for it and the right combination. Now, surprisingly, with all this black, I mean, up here, I mean, look at this compared to its background. It looks very, it's very obvious. It sticks out like a sore thumb because there is a lot of black, kind of like with me and my hoodie and my white words here. So, you know, you do stick out a good amount at close range and with nothing in between, but typically you want distance anyway. So being motionless, the tiger stripe actually fits in pretty well, because again, the human eye registers darkness as, or black as depth. And here's another thing, when this thing starts fading out, this black will fade out too. And you know, it really isn't that bad, or if it gets a little bit of dirt on it, it's really not too bad. So it's not like too bad, but you know, there's other things that go into it as well. The human form, the shape, stuff like that. Like I was able to make this blend in by basically mimicking a fallen tree. So you had a lot of stuff in the way, but it was actually a clear visual window, and you weren't able to see it with no movement. So you were seeing black working with its environment, and my human eye wasn't actually able to pick it up just as much as the camera wasn't able to pick it up. But as soon as there was movement, you'd notice, because that perfect pattern is moving. So anyways, mosquitoes are eating me alive, but I appreciate you all watching. Go ahead and leave a comment below, subscribe, and give me a like, and follow me on social media. Link down in the description below.